Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Iain Black.
Ladies and gentlemen, what I want to walk you through today, particularly with this being Small Business Month, I want to tell you why we're actually celebrating Small Business Month. And it's not good form to correct your gracious host, but John, I have to correct you. It's actually Small Business Month, not Small Business Week. And this is a good correction to make, because British Columbia was the first province about 30-odd years ago to actually establish Small Business Week. And then with the success and the importance of our small business community as it developed over the subsequent decades, we realized that frankly a week is just not enough. So a few years ago it was actually changed to Small Business Month here in British Columbia. So I'm going to talk about why we do that. Why do we have this Small Business Month? And I'm going to talk about what government has done in the last number of years to support the crucial role that you and your clients play. Now, this is a very special day as well, because we are actually having presented today the annual report from the Small Business Roundtable. I'm going to come back and talk about that in just a moment. And that takes place at the very end of kind of my prepared remarks as well. But I want to start, first of all, by doing a couple of things. I want to talk about our CGAs. And I have to tell you that they truly are the perfect hosts for the presentation of the Small Business Roundtable annual report. And they're the perfect hosts because, as was mentioned, the vast majority of their clients are small business. Small to mid-sized business, but a tremendous number of them small business. And the tagline, of course, is 60 years of trusted advice to British Columbian small business. And I have to tell you, I started my career with IBM, and the most precious holy grail status that you could hope to achieve with your clients when I was working at IBM was to be called the trusted advisor. And I'm afraid that the IBM sales team never achieved that as well as the CGA community. So my hat's off to all of you. You are trusted tremendously, and my thanks for hosting our luncheon here today. Let's just focus on small business by the numbers, something that I'm more comfortable doing with accountants, because you're typically better at numbers than I am. 98% of all of the businesses in British Columbia are small businesses. StatsCan calls a small business 50 employees or less. 98%. There are approximately 96,000. So 396,000 small businesses in British Columbia. What is of note is that's actually gone up 3% year over year. Speaks to our economic recovery and the patterns. I'm going to come back to that just a little bit later. That breaks down in terms of self-employed without paid help, about 56% of those. And in businesses with less than 50 people, about 42%. Now, this is actually the more striking of the charts, in my opinion. British Columbia stands alone in Canada with respect to its success of its small business community, but equally as important, its reliance upon its small business community. We have 57%, almost 6 out of 10, of all jobs in British Columbia come from small business. There is no other province in Canada that is reliant on its employment as much as British Columbia is when it comes to small business. 19.7, call it 20%, is BC's shares of self-employed. So of that, almost 20% are declaring themselves as self-employed, again, first in the country. Over a third of our GDP, fully comes from our small business community. There is no other province in the country that gets as much of its GDP and its economic performance out of its small business community as does British Columbia. And finally, the number of businesses we have per capita. It's an interesting statistic. Almost 90, 88.9 small businesses per 1,000 people. In this, we rank second. The national average, incidentally, is 70. So it's quite a remarkable difference. Here's a couple more for you. Small businesses export in British Columbia. We are an exporting province, and $12.5 billion is exported by the small business community. It amounts to about 41% of our provincial total. And now here's the one I actually had fun with this. I spoke with a bunch of MBA students at UBC a couple of weeks ago. I had fun with this statistic. I said that the average rise in small business wages over the last 5 years is actually 19%. But all those MBAs who figure they're going to work for big banks and stuff downtown, they only got 11%. So it was an interesting moment of these MBAs saying, well, maybe I should go into small business. I said, now you're talking. It was good fun. Okay. So given the importance of the small business community, what does government do? Well, I coined a phrase a couple of weeks ago that I've become comfortable with, and I think it helps to frame the discussion that we're having today. And that is that I think it is the role of government, any government, when it comes to small business, to do two things. And there is no finish line to this exercise. The first thing is to pave the way. And the second thing is to get out of the way. And they both have to be done in sync. So let's talk about the getting out of the way part, which is red tape. Couple of caveats for you here. We are not fans of red tape. My Small Business Roundtable now has a permanent agenda item when we do our consultations to discuss red tape and how things are slowing you down as small business people. That is how important this is, and the exercise has no completion to it. But the caveat here is consumer protection and public safety. So with the exception of those two, anything is up for discussion for elimination when it comes to red tape. Well, between 2001 and 2005, we thought we had to do something about this. We actually eliminated 42% of all the regulations that were on the books. They add up to over 152,000 regulations were absolutely eliminated. If you were to take them on one page each and stack them, that would be a stack of paper 16 meters high. Now, we didn't stop there. We then went on to say, okay, starting then in 2005, we're going to reset the meter, the odometer, if you will, and we're going to zero baseline the whole thing, and we're going to commit as government that we're not going to go above that level. Well, in actual fact, we've done better than that. We're actually down about another 9.8% or so of the regulations in the province of British Columbia. And again, we are very, very hawkish on this kind of thing. Now, I'll give you just a couple of quick examples because they're kind of fun. When we started on this journey, we actually had regulations that prescribed the fact that there had to be dance floors in a comedy club. Now, I don't know how many of you have been to comedy clubs, but I've never seen a comedian actually dance, or the people in the comedy club for that matter. Likewise, we had regulations that would prescribe to you, if you were a pub owner or a bar owner, what type of television you could have to show your patrons the whatever sporting shows you want to show them in the pub. And it would describe how big the television had to be, how many feet off the floor it had to be mounted, what rackets needed to be used to mount it. You couldn't just chuck it on top of the Coke freezer the way they used to in a lot of the old sitcoms. So it was that kind of stuff that was absolutely getting in the way of just common sense, and those are the kinds of things that were tackled. Now, I should point out that we've achieved not just national leadership on this file, but actually international leadership as well. The OECD has actually commissioned a study on British Columbia internationally as to our focus and commitment in this area. Now, there's another three things that I'm going to touch on very briefly that we've done to cut out process, because this is the stuff that slows you down and drives you nuts. The first one's called BizPal. This actually is a government creation. It's one of these neat examples where we actually have the business community and certainly our Small Business Roundtable members coming to us and saying, you know what, you got this one right. And it's called BizPal. What BizPal does effectively takes 2 days worth of work and lets you get it done in about 20 minutes. And anyone here has started a business and needs to pursue permits and applications across all three different levels of government, federal, municipal, and provincial, realize that this is a lot of work. But we actually, in conjunction with now 89 different municipalities throughout British Columbia, make it one-stop shopping. You can do it online and get the job done quickly. So that has been a great effort in removing 14 steps that you had to take before. We also have something called the mobile business license. In my neck of the woods, this is particularly relevant because if you happen to be a plumber and you live in Coquitlam, which is where I make my home, you will have customers guaranteed in Port Moody, Admore, Belcarra, probably Burnaby, definitely Port Coquitlam, Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, etc., and you need to have a business license for each of them. Well, what we are now doing is we've piloted this very successfully, is we've now got the mobile business license. And the interesting thing that happens is that compliance goes up when you actually introduce these types of steps and actually make it easy for people to follow the rules, if you will. Then there's the New West Partnership, formerly known as TILMA. I'm going to give a quick tip of the hat here to the CGAs once again, because they were very firm in their encouraging government when it came to things like interprovincial labor mobility, which is a big part of the New West Partnership. It's not just about trade barriers, it's also about mobility of labor, it's about worker credential recognition, and it also has to do with registering a business in one province is now honored in the other two. So these are really, really significant steps. This is a fairly new announcement with the addition of Saskatchewan to the deal that we had with Alberta, and all signs are that it's also being modeled throughout the rest of Canada. Now, there's all kinds of initiatives at play when it comes to training. I'm not going to dwell on this chart a whole lot. Suffice it to say that when it comes to investing in your greatest asset, which is your people, I know that from my own experience of owning and running businesses, that you go through different economic cycles and there are different times when you could use some help. And there's a whole myriad of programs that the government has rolled out, whether it's focused on unemployed or overqualified workers, as we came through the most recent difficult time. The small business, they had a specific funds focused on small businesses, where the roundtable again came back to us and said, look, on this one, you got it right. One-page application, speedy turnaround on the money, well done. Likewise, programs that are focused on immigrants, foreign qualification, and then of course there's a provincial nominee program. Has anyone here got a client, or if you are a client of a CGA, has anyone here used the provincial nominee program? It's a fantastic program. It's the first person to use it, I've been told, I don't have this confirmed, I've been told was actually the Dean of the Business School at Sauder School of Business at UBC. He was one of the first people that went through that program. And we're expecting about 14,500 more skilled and business immigrants by 2012 from where we are right now. So the biggest challenge we have on this particular program is that we're a victim of our success.